Are these fish friends or food?
Well, king salmon are key to our income. They're what makes or break our season. It's a beautiful way to make a living.
King salmon, also called Chinook, are vital to Alaska's rural economy, but also the primary prey for a group of starving killer whales in Washington state.
Welfare and well-being of the endangered southern resident killer whales means something to me. I want to make sure that we're doing everything possible to make sure that they have access to as much food as they need.
Both animals are caught in a legal battle that could stop king salmon fishing in Alaska, but potentially help the whales. As the case moves through federal court, people in small towns on both sides of the issue are waiting on a decision that holds their culture, economy, and way of life in the balance.
The land and the water and the animals manage themselves. They don't need us to manage them. We need to manage ourselves.
So our boat's a 45-foot little hookwiam, and my dad bought the hull and the cabin separately, put it together. Drop our stuff off here.
Julie Yates has worked in the industry for more than 40 years. She's now teaching her son Bear all about the business.
Hey, Mom. Ready? One on the same time. 1, 2, 3.
You know, this is a blast.
Yeah, this is where I grew up in the summer. It was on a boat.
I've gotten scared, but on the King opener, our weather was extremely rough. I was here. I'd have a leg over here and a hand here to hold on. It was so rough. It was the king salmon opening, and that's where we have to make the bulk of our money. And so we need to be in the spot where we know there's going to be a lot of kings. So once you're in that situation, because of where we're at, you're in it. You can't get out. There's nowhere to go. It's just part of what we do. I mean, we used to joke that you're back on the back deck and you're trying to solve the world's problems. You know, you have so much time to think and ponder out here.
Which is good and bad.
Yeah.
Good and bad.
King, also known as Chinook, is the Pacific's largest and most valuable type of salmon, selling for nearly 5 times the price of other kinds. It's also harder to find. Even though Julie and her family were targeting kings the day ABC filmed them, they ended up catching cohos.
And it's like something I take pride in. I always want to go out and catch kings. If kings were taken out of the situation, it'd be a lot harder to make a living.
It costs a lot to keep a boat like this running, and a lot of your money goes back into your boat. So I love this kind of work. I love fishing for hours and pulling fish aboard and spending this kind of time with my family. I wouldn't want to do anything else. Shutting down the king salmon fishery in Southeast Alaska is going to affect my family and hundreds of other families. You know, I grew up fishing with my dad. I knew I always wanted to fish as much as I can throughout my lifestyle, and then Bear fell in love with it too. So it's been his dream to follow in his footsteps and continue this. And so it's hard to even think about that and see what the future looks like.
King salmon doesn't just support the economy. It's also a food source for locals, including tribal members.
So, I'll show you my pantry. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, probably 13, 14, 15 cases of fish. So some is smoked, and this is king. I have the salmon that we put up last year, so I'll eat this first. Smoked and plain, and then I have beach greens here, which were harvested last year, which is more than I need, and I'll probably end up sharing at least half of this. Salmon are a huge part of our culture. We've relied on salmon for food source for over 10,000 years. You know, my dad has taught me everything I know, and his grandma taught him, and that's how our culture is passed down. Do you do both sides?
Probably one, not that much.
Okay.
Today, newspaper style, so when it's all done, you can fold it back up. And it hangs open until it gets dried, and then you put it away and it folds all back up like that. I've been a commercial fisherman since I was 11 years old. I'm now 74, so I've been out on the ocean a long time. We go and get our own meat and we get our own fish. Our preference is to go get our own, and it's fresh and it's as good as you can get. Even though that the king salmon season is short, it's a more expensive fish, depending on the amount of talent you have and how hard you're willing to work and your quality of your equipment and so on. It's probably 40% of your income.
When we process salmon, we're not only putting up our food source for the winter supply, but we're feeding elders in the community, and we're also teaching and learning and storytelling around the table when we're cutting up salmon. And when you have that connection, not only to each other, but to where your food comes from, you have a greater respect for that food.
Decades ago, king salmon could live in the wild for more than 9 years and grow to more than 100 pounds. But today they're in trouble. Thanks to climate change, warming waters, and habitat loss, they now live about half as long and weigh just 30 pounds on average.
You know, there's a lot of factors involved. Global warming it's not coming, it's here. I've watched it since I was a little kid. We used to wade around in snow waist deep. The bays would totally freeze over. You could walk on them. They don't freeze anymore.
Should I go get it?
King salmon are smaller, and I see it happen when you stress a resource, whether it be on land or in the water. And I think that they're starting at the wrong end. I'd welcome them to come and talk with the tribe here in Craig. I'm a tribal council member, so I extend an invitation to come and talk to us and tell us what your theory really is, and maybe we can help you.
I just have to do the finishing touches, which in our traditional language I'm going to write. My traditional name's Kutink, smokehouse, in Tlingit. Then he'll be done.
The city of Craig, with just over 1,000 residents, relies heavily on the fishing industry. Even the mayor is a lifelong commercial fisherman.
Good girl. You in your boat? Yeah, she likes barking at the sea otters and the seals and the whales. Get everything all set up. Turn on all my stuff back here. Check my speed. These leads hold down the gear. And as it goes down, we snap on the gear. See it? And every 2 fathoms or fathom and a half, we snap on more gear. 3 years ago, I got involved and heard about the lawsuit, what was going on, because I'm the vice president on the Alaska Trollers Association, and we got engaged or involved in it, trying to defend our fishery, you know, because they're suing to shut us down. And their idea is that they need our king salmon, or the king salmon that come through here, to feed killer whales in Puget Sound. And if that stop fishing king salmon was successful, it would probably cut the population in Craig in half or less. We have several families here in town that's what their sole income is fishing. That's it. They don't know how to do anything else. So you can up and move your whole family down to the lower 48 and get involved there? No. Most of these people would not even know how, because they were born and raised here. I believe there is a big misconception of how fishermen are in Alaska and what it entails. Trollers catch fish individually, one hook at a time. It takes a lot of skill, a lot of knowledge to learn this, and a huge investment. It's pretty scary, you know, when you start thinking about the possibilities of it. You know, we learn from the School of Hard Knocks out here in nature. We live it. We know what makes it work. When the fish are thick and they're really biting well, you'll catch a fish on every hook. Sometimes 2 or 3, sometimes you'll load up, but sometimes just 1, and sometimes none. That's why they call it fishing, not catching. There you go.
King salmon and the southern resident orcas are closely linked. The whales evolved over time to eat these fish, which have become smaller and less abundant in recent decades. And now, toxins in the water and sound pollution from boats make survival for the whales even more difficult. Biologists are racing to help the southern residents by studying them and other groups of whales in the area.
But we have a group of 12 and then another group of, I think, 5. So that's good. That means more butts. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodie. Oh my goodness. Good job. What we do is we go out and we orient the boat downwind of where the group is, and we have Eba out on the bow, and Eba will indicate through body language whether or not she comes upon a sample.
The southern residents are increasingly hard to find as they go farther and farther in search of food. So Giles also studies a nearby group of orcas that face similar environmental conditions but exclusively feed on mammals, not salmon.
If we get the mammal-eating killer whale feces, we can do a comparison. For the southern residents, they are basically in a constant state of hunger. And there's one fish that they're trying to, share between 3 or 4 family members. It's always a time crunch, but they're not too far. I mean, they are several miles offshore, but hopefully they'll make their way this way and not go the other way. Is that one in? Yeah. Okay, stepping up. The southern resident killer whales are an amazing population of animals, and through time, the whales have become very dependent on Chinook salmon. We are so highly efficient as humans of extracting fish that we have completely changed the whales' ability to find food and feed their families. Oh yeah. That we're just going to do some distant fluke follows on these guys, hopefully find a poop.
Oh, excellent. We'll pull off here a bit farther then and give you a bit more space.
How about just on their path? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was funny.
Did you get the other big one?
Yes.
I didn't see. Oh, nice. Good.
Yeah, so I'm gloving up so that my DNA doesn't get into the samples. This has a smell. So this very well could be from the rear end, the end we love. Do you guys want to take a quick look at this? This is our centrifuge. Frank, his name is Frank. One's 37.5, one's 40.
Okay.
I'm super excited that this sample actually spun down into a pellet, which you can see here at the bottom. If we just took a break, if we just gave fish an opportunity to recover, that everybody would be in a better situation. The reason that it's so important to protect the southern residents and help them recover is because they are an ancient population of animals that have been here since time immemorial.
In 2019, the federal government acknowledged that Alaska's troll fishing limits didn't allow enough king salmon to return to southern resident territory in the Salish Sea. A conservation group in Washington filed a lawsuit against the government for continuing to approve the king salmon harvest, despite the fact that it couldn't prove a mitigation effort to produce more hatchery fish would be enough to help the whales. A judge ruled in their favor and granted a request to close the fishery while the government determined if a harvest could continue without harming the protected whales. But a circuit court panel reversed this decision, citing disastrous economic consequences. And the case is still making its way through the courts.
So ultimately, This was a huge disappointment to so many people in the lower 48. I'm sympathetic for the uncertainty that this caused for so many Alaskans, because we know so many Alaskans depend on these stocks. But unfortunately, this is a problem, and we can't keep putting our head in the sand and pretending that we can keep fishing at these levels and in this way. And of course, killer whales and the southern resident population that depends on these stocks, they're the canary in the coal mine. When you have a species that's quite literally starving to death that depends on Chinook, that's a pretty good indicator that Chinook are in crisis.
This group of killer whales has been struggling since the 1960s and 70s, when dozens were captured for use in marine parks.
In San Diego, there is a daughter who has not seen her family for 24 years. Her family, who last saw her when she was abducted at the age of 4. But the debate is bigger than Corky. It goes to the heart of whether it is ethical to keep any of these animals in captivity to provide entertainment for tourists.
Their population recovered after a few decades, but in recent years, Giles and other scientists have found that 69% of pregnancies fail among this group, largely due to a lack of food. There are now just 74 southern residents left accounted for.
The southern residents are the best known, to the point of we end up with newspaper articles every time they have a new calf, or we'll have a memorial of the ones we lose in a year.
Whale watching companies represent 13% of total employment in the San Juan Islands and bring in around 500,000 visitors to the area every year.
Marine wildlife viewing is definitely like one of the top 3 reasons people come here. When you get the chance to see whales, like I've witnessed this, that awe, that fascination, just this absolute, like, even childlike enthusiasm.
So this is kind of important to see here. The red means southern resident orca, black is other species, like we have the big transients, humpback.
Yeah, well, we get hundreds of thousands of people coming through here, primarily April through September, from all over the world. We've counted like 50 different countries that have come through this area.
All the different fun languages of people that have come here. We got even the sign language, So every culture has orca,
They definitely are here looking for the whales. They want to have that whale experience that they see online and see pictures of and hear stories about.
Back in the day, there definitely was a lot more, a lot more of this going on. Absolutely. Yeah, it's shifted.
I love coming down here in the early morning, but I love coming down here in the evening after dinner. When it's beautiful, I love it down here. It's so peaceful feeling right now. Can you feel that kind of sense of calm? I can see why my ancestors came here. It started out as a seasonal fish camp, but then decided, this is a place to live.
My dad has been a commercial fisherman my entire life and his entire life, and I think about how king salmon sustains not only our family but the community here and everyone in this region. These are our ancestral homelands as Tlingit people. Our people have stewarded these lands for over 10,000 years, and when we do harvest fish, we always share more than what we keep, and we take care of our community.
It's a lot of weight because you have to explain to a lot of people what's happening, and the fact that it could devastate your community, it can devastate your livelihood, your income, and change an entire state and region.
Even though the economic harm should be considered when extinction's on the table, that takes precedent. And so we often look at what are those levers we can pull, what can we control as humans? And unfortunately, climate change and ocean conditions are much harder to control. Obviously, whales can't speak for themselves, the Chinook can't speak for themselves.
If I'm talking to someone who's coming from outside Washington, and I'll say, well, how did you hear about the San Juans? What made you want to come here? And oftentimes they'll say, because I want to see whales.
Okay, come on. We're in an area on the island where the whales can get really close to shore. They used to hang out here all the time because there used to be fish here all the time. The very first time I saw them, I looked over my left shoulder and the whales were just right there. And I got out of the car and just started running parallel to the whales and watching them. And yeah, it's a fabulous place. I walk here as much as I can with Eva, and just, keep working for the whales, keep working for the fish that they need to survive and thrive.